And when I think about my friends, my two best friends, Jordan and Trey, like they were athletes, right? I just didn't have it. I just didn't have it. I'm a scrawny kid from the West End. Once again, if I couldn't beat you on the court, I was going to beat you in the classroom. And if I could beat you in the classroom, which I was probably going to beat you in the classroom, I was going to beat you when it came to dressing, right? I always just wanted to control the narrative. And the way that I controlled the narrative was the classroom and in my dress and my appearance, because I didn't have the God-given ability to play sports. I still don't. I can work out. I'm a little fat right now. But
could sing.
So that's a could sing. That's my thing. I was in chorus. I was in thing. Yo, do you remember that song I wrote for a living? Yeah, man, but going back to the whole episode, man. But really, I've been competitive because I wanted to make it out. But I also realized that me making it out wasn't just enough, right? I had to make sure that me and my little brother and my little sister was making it out. I put that on my shoulders and we made it out.
Mm-hmm. You described the household. Do you mind just sharing like what the circumstances were that eventually caused you to end up being raised by your grandmother ultimately?
Once again, I take so much pride and power in my story. It's funny, I was at an offsite a couple years ago, or a year or two ago, and the senior vice president at the time went around and was kind of talking about the family business, right? The family business. And he got choked up because he was now the SVP. And when his dad died, he died as the SVP. So him becoming an SVP was just kind of like a paramount moment in his career. He shared that story to kind of ground an ice-breaking moment. And he asked everyone to go around and kind of talk about, like, where are you right now? It was a bunch of leaders in the room. In tech, I was the only one that looked like me. But what was the family business and how did you get here? And everybody was going around. One of my homies' father was a CEO of a Fortune 500 who took it public and sold it, made well into 7 to 8 figures off that sale. House in the Hamptons, a house in Santa Barbara. All my friends were just going around. And I said, yo, my family business was the drug business. That was the family business for me, right? And I used to carry so much shame with that. But I think about like my uncle, my mom's oldest brother, Uncle Mike. Man, he was the king with this. He was the biggest drug dealer from Virginia down to Atlanta. That's when you kind of got into BMF and all of that, right? And my mom was kind of like his COO. She kind of helped run the business. And I used to carry so much shame because where we went to school, people's parents were doctors, lawyers. I remember Mike Sanchez's dad was the president, the chief operating officer of Duke Hospital. Remember that? Like,
yo, I gotta interject and just say that, like, going to Jordan High School, when we went to Jordan High School, I knew that there were kids there who had some money, and I would see the neighborhoods we would pass driving into the school, right?
Yeah. I didn't realize how much money they had.
Yeah, I didn't realize nothing like the magnitude of some of the people we were around in terms of like their parents and what they were doing in the city. I really didn't realize how many of their kids were at Jordan.
I didn't realize it either, man, until I got to college and I would say going to Morehouse, seeing Black students and Black men whose parents did the same thing also kind of changed the game for me. But I didn't realize the magnitude of the amount of money or wealth we went to school with. What I did know though is them houses was huge.
Yeah. Yeah. It was cool. We went with somebody with a nice house. It was like, oh,
right.
Facts.
And had a pool in the backyard, and it wasn't the community pool, right? Right. The why. Going back though, my mom was in the drug business. My uncle was in the drug business. And when came collapsing down, man, like they took everything. And that's when I knew. You talking about competitive. I remember, I don't know if you remember this morning, but I remember standing at the bus stop, 6th grade. Don, the sun had just come up or was just coming up. And I don't know if like Tyler Perry or Oprah scripted this shit. We'll talk about Oprah later because she kind of made it possible for me to go to college. I couldn't, as the bus was pulling up to the bus stop, I swear for God, 14 to 15 Suburbans was pulling up in front of the bus, going to my house, getting ready to raid the house to get my mom to take her to jail. Wow. We had the police, the feds, the helicopter swarming. And they was like, Brandon, they at your house? I was like, no, they ain't at my house. I'm knowing they're like, yeah, they there. You know what I'm saying? And I remember this girl, God, she gonna be in the story anyway when I do my TED Talk. Chantel Hall was like, Brandon, they at your house, they going to get your mom. I was like, they not going to get my mom. I remember looking at Chantel Hall, and she told the whole school when I got there. But I remember that. I made up in my mind in 6th grade that will never happen again, right? That would I would never be to the point where I am so embarrassed by the circumstances of life where I refuse to own whatever is happening in that moment. Right. Yes, they were going to my house. The reason why I now take pride in that story, because I think about the hustle, the grit, the fortitude, the entrepreneurial spirit that my mama and my uncle had. Yes, it affected a lot of people's lives, but they were also a product of their own environment. Right. And the business that they know was passed down to them. And they were just trying to make it out in their own way, shape, form, and fashion as well. So when my mom went to prison, my mom's mom, my grandma Joyce, who kind of was already the matriarch of the family and raising us, given kind of my mom's occupation, she was kind of already raising me, my brother, and my sister. But when my mom went to prison, my grandma Joyce kind of really just stepped in and started raising me, Delson and Tanisha.
Oh, this is one. I appreciate you sharing that story, and in large part because one of the things I do want to do with this podcast long term is be a bridge for individuals from circumstances like you just described, and providing resources that help get them closer to career paths where they can professionalize their skill sets that they're just naturally sort of born with due to their environment, due to circumstances out of their control.
Right.
A lot of young folks who come up in circumstances are prepared to do high level sales, especially in the enterprise software space. I didn't even know about software sales until I was of a certain age and was definitely late to the party. But someone like yourself, that skill set was developed and nurtured due to your circumstances. And I guess we'll speak to how that helped you advance throughout, but it's a prime example of stuff I've said on prior episodes, that these conditions almost curate the skill set necessary to thrive. But
it is the breeding ground. Growing up in the hood is the breeding ground for ultimately having to overcome challenges, right? Reposition the messaging so that you are now putting yourself in a better situation, right? To change the outcome. Yes, I just kind of think about like when a client gives me a no, how I can now go and reposition,
right,
or pivot the conversation. Similar to what I was doing at the bus stop that morning when Brandon, they at your house. No, they ain't at my house. I know they're somewhere else. Like, how y'all saying? Like, but just being able to think on my feet at that time to position, or throwing somebody else under the bus. No, that ain't me. You know what I'm saying? But definitely, man, growing up in the hood, I would say, is the ultimate training ground, if you will, for anyone that needs to be if you're in a high pressure situation, or if your job demands you to pivot, to think of different scenarios on the fly, to maybe reposition the message or the hood is definitely a breeding ground for that.
So much rejection and adversity on a daily basis when you live in that environment, and you need to be able to have the callousness or the fortitude to deal with that in these high pressure, high performing roles. You grew up on the West End of Durham. Like, for people listening, how would you describe what it was like growing up on the West End?
So, man, it's weird. I have two different views or lenses that I look at, right?